My friends had been planning a get-together for months, but when I drove 5 hours to get to their house, everyone else had already been there for at least a day, and now they're leaving me hanging again by leaving me to sleep on the couch for 5 days. I, 29F, and Josie, 30F, have been friends since high school. We live apart but still keep in very regular contact. I was invited to stay with her and her husband, Leo, 30M, for a few days because their town was having a huge annual festival that we were all interested in attending. They had asked me to come early this year. Maybe a month or so before, they informed me they invited some college friends to stay for the weekend as well. I was excited for this because I have only met their college friends a handful of times and I know they are really close. The plan was for me to stay Thursday to Monday. I should also preface that when Josie and Leo bought their home, I stayed with them for a month while I was between jobs. This was many years ago now, but since it has been dubbed my room. It is obviously not actually mine, but I have stayed in it every time I have visited them since. I drove 4 hours to their place on Thursday. When I arrived, their college friends were there already and I was shocked to see it wasn't just them. Josie and Leo had invited their friend Shane and his fiancée, and their friend Sarah and her husband. I have met Shane and Sarah before but not their partners. I was immediately irritated because it felt like a couple's get-together already. I have a partner of nearly 3 years who I live with, Oliver, who Josie and Leo have met several times, and he was not invited on this trip. I tried to get over the awkwardness and exchange pleasantries, until I went to go upstairs and put my bag away and Josie and Leo stopped me and told me that Shane and his fiancée were staying in that room. I was like, whoops, my bad. I should not have assumed and asked if I was in the other, smaller guest room. They said no, Sarah and her husband were in there. They told me then that they hoped I was okay with sleeping on the couch. I was really trying not to be too annoyed or cranky about this, but I had just driven 5 hours and was under the impression I was getting a bedroom for the weekend, mostly because we had this weekend planned for months and they had never mentioned otherwise. I would not have been opposed to a couch sleep for maybe one night, but there was no way I was going to sleep on the couch for the entire weekend, especially since we'd be drinking and partying pretty heavily. I asked them why they didn't tell me plans had changed so I could get a hotel sooner and they insisted they didn't think I'd have a problem sleeping on the couch. Apparently, Sarah and her husband were planning on getting a hotel but waited too long and couldn't find an affordable one last minute. At this point I was really irritated, both by the partner situation and the sleeping arrangements. I called Oliver and he was upset for me. We both looked for hotels in the area but could not find anything affordable for the entire weekend. I told Oliver about the couples and he was annoyed to not be invited, since he likes Josie and Leo a lot. Finally, after like an hour of back and forth, Oliver asked if I wanted to come home and I honestly really did. I privately told Josie and Leo the first was uncomfortable by the situation, wished everyone a good weekend, and drove back home. I got a call Saturday morning from Josie and she said she was really disappointed that I had acted so rashly and she wished that I had stayed. I told her that I didn't understand why she didn't update me on the sleeping situation as soon as she knew about it, and she told me the only reason I was booted to the couch is because Sarah and her husband both couldn't fit. So then I asked her why she didn't invite Oliver if she had invited the other couples and she just said sorry they hadn't thought about it. I told her that I was upset and hurt by the situation, and I didn't regret leaving. I received another message from her last night saying everyone had left and she was really disappointed in me and that I ruined her weekend because she was upset the entire time. I'm starting to feel bad and also getting fear of missing out from not being there. I had been really looking forward to the festival and hanging out with everyone. Anyway, am I a jerk for leaving? Edit: as I am reading through the comments I am untangling some of the feelings I was having. I am upset by being assigned to the couch, especially because it was last minute and I was not told beforehand. An entire weekend of partying with an uncomfortable sleeping arrangement and no privacy really sounded miserable. I am not 22 anymore, but I do think I am more upset about Oliver's exclusion and just didn't piece it together / really held on to the couch as an excuse. It really did feel like it was made into a couple's weekend and somehow Oliver and I were excluded from that. I hated immediately feeling like the seventh wheel. Update: I waited until the weekend to call Josie because I thought we could both use the time to cool off and think about the situation. I spent a few days parsing through your comments. When we finally got on the phone, she was instantly apologetic for how the previous weekend went, but before we went further into the convo I asked her to explain how we ended up where we did. So here are the events as she told it. Her and I made plans in January for me to come visit for this festival. Her husband, Leo, was only interested in like one-day's events and wasn't planning on attending with us the rest of the time, so it was mainly a girls' weekend for us. Sometime in March, Leo mentioned the weekend to Shane, his college friend, who showed interest. Josie said it was Leo's idea to invite Shane so he'd have someone to hang out with while her and I were busy with our plans. Josie and Leo told me at this point that Shane would be there for the weekend, too. And then I guess a couple of days after that, Sarah, in the same college friend group, heard about the event from Shane, and her husband decided to go as well. Josie at this point told me that their friend Sarah would also be in town for the festival. She did not tell me Sarah was planning on staying at their house because they had originally planned on getting a hotel. Somewhere between Shane being added and the festival weekend, Shane proposed to his now fiancée and then requested she be added to the trip. The Monday before the trip, Sarah and her husband called that they couldn't find an affordable hotel and asked if they could stay with Josie and Leo. When I asked Josie why she didn't just update me on the plans, she said she was feeling overwhelmed by all of the changes and worried that if I knew I'd be now sleeping on the couch, I wouldn't come. She claimed that her and Leo looked for hotels for me but also couldn't find anything affordable. She said she felt bad, she understood why I left but she wished that I hadn't, and that she spent the entire weekend feeling awful. So, she did apologize, and I also apologized for leaving abruptly without talking it out. I also felt very overwhelmed by the situation, especially because I barely know Shane and Sarah, let alone their partners. That's the simplified version of that problem. Now, I also asked why they hadn't thought to invite Oliver. I said that I understood plans changed pretty fast, but there was a decent chunk of time where she knew all the couples would at least be at the festival, and she could have at least extended the invite. I said I wasn't buying the excuse that they forgot, especially since she'd just explained she was kind of purposefully keeping me in the dark in the hopes I wouldn't cancel. Josie admitted that the last time all four of us were together, which was last September, Oliver made a pass at Leo that made Leo really uncomfortable. It was a night we had all been out drinking, and according to Leo, somehow the conversation got around to the topic of Oliver's sexuality. He's bi, and Leo made a comment about never having any sexual interaction men, to which Oliver responded, "Well, if you ever want to change that, let me know." I got off the phone to talk to Oliver. I know that he would never cheat on me and that he probably meant it as a joke. Oliver said he remembered the night and said it was just a joke because he could tell Leo was uncomfortable with Oliver's past dating men, and that he didn't think Leo took him seriously. He offered to call Leo and smooth it over himself, but I told him to hold off because I didn't want to make the situation worse. I just told Josie privately that Oliver didn't mean to make Leo uncomfortable and that he was sorry, and she said she'd tell Leo that. So, Josie and I are okay, even if things are still a little tense? I genuinely don't know what to do about the Leo/Oliver situation other than let it smooth over with time. I only see Josie 3 to 4 times a year, and Oliver sees them maybe 1 to 2 times a year, so hopefully the next time we all want to do something it can just be forgotten. Commenter, your story reminds me of my abusive ex. The thing is, he made sure he would bulldoze any plans I had with friends or introducing him my friends by adding unnecessary people, his friends, into it at the last second. It irritated me, but I kept pushing it off until I got fed up with it. It was his way of trying to isolate me and manipulate and micromanage all my time. And I confirmed that with one of his exes who happens to be one of my closest friends now. Your friend's story is BS her husband made up so he can get her to cut you out of her life. The way you explain how he hijacked your plans by continuing adding his friends and forcing you out, truly hit home with how my abusive ex tried to hijack any plans I had and corner my friends or acquaintances out.